This episode of the Music Production Podcast is brought to you by my new Ableton Live pack called Chillstruments. Chillstruments contains 70 Ableton Live instrument racks made with samples of Teenage Engineering's OP1 synthesizer. I use the 10 synthesizer engines of the OP1 to create these laid-back, relaxed, soothing sounds. There's 70 of them. They're all racked up into Ableton Live instrument racks with effects and controls that allow you to customize each sound to fit your production. If you're looking for some more mellow sounds, something to create some soothing music, maybe ambient music, or just a little touch in the background that's not too aggressive, I really think these sounds are great. There's 70 of them. There's a lot of diversity, bass, piano, pads, strings, winds, lots of cool sounds, lots of possibilities. You can get it at my site, brianfunk.com. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the Music Production Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Funk. We are having this show to talk about anything related to music, and today I've got a duo here, two guests at once, 2 for 1. I've got David Marston and Phil Celeste.
Hello, hello.
Yo.
What's up, guys?
How's it going?
They're working, they just released a single called Airwaves together. They also have their kind of solo projects that they do. Phil is Life on Planets, and David's just David Marston.
Yeah.
And but that's something we can actually talk about because I've recently gone just to my name, to keep it things make my life easier. But yeah, so they've I guess you guys are longtime collaborators, so you got a history of working together and doing your own thing. So you got a nice mix of how to do music on your own, how to do it with another person. So I think we have a lot of cool stuff to talk about today. So welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you very much for having us.
Cheers. Thanks, Brian.
Yeah, it's good to talk to you. And funny enough, you guys, I'd seen Phil, you're from Baltimore, right?
Yeah, I'd been living in Baltimore for the past 8 or 9 years, and Maryland for all of my life. And I just moved to New York 2 months ago.
Oh, wow. Welcome to New York.
Thanks.
Well, that was the funny thing, because David, you're living in Jamaica, right?
So I'm not living in Jamaica currently. I'm in Brooklyn, but I'm actually leaving for an extended period. But yeah.
And that's not Jamaica in New
great.
York. This is the island.
This is the island
Yeah.
of Jamaica. I grew up in Jamaica, the island, and that's where my family is from. I was born in the States, but spent most of my adolescence in Jamaica.
Nice. But funny enough, we're all in New York right now.
Yep.
Actually, kind of close to each other. So that's cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's nice to talk to you. I'm excited to kind of hear the difference between working alone, working together, and how that might influence each project you do. But maybe I can give you guys a minute to just sort of introduce yourselves and your work to the audience at large here.
Sure. So yeah, I'm Phil Celeste, also known as Life on Planets. I've been doing the Life on Planets project for about 5 years now. It's kind of all started in Baltimore. I was busking full time on the streets, and I met this producer, and we were living at these 2 warehouses next to each other, and we started collaborating. And this producer, he goes by Discoogie now. He has a record label called Better on Foot, and he sent some of our collaborations to the Wolf and Lamb crew here in New York. And so I think it was about a year after we started making music together, we were touring with these guys in Barcelona and Russia and stuff.
Nice.
And playing in New York all the time. And then after a while, we split ways, and I kept the project, and I've been working on sort of transforming it from, I guess, what could be described as a jazz, folk, house sort of thing into maybe a little bit more of a R&B house sort of thing. And so, yeah, so here we are.
That's cool. And David, maybe I'll give you a moment.
Yeah, sure. So As I was mentioning before, I grew up in Jamaica, it's a country with a very rich musical history and background. And in my teenage years, I got into playing guitar and was playing in rock bands, and went to college in the U.S. Came here for college. I studied at the University of Pennsylvania for my undergrad, and there I started delving into production and getting into that more seriously. And I also started getting into dance music as well at that time, and electronic music. Before, it was kind of more rock and reggae. Um, so and actually, so I was producing in college a lot, and started sending my music out to people after a couple of years, and got some positive feedback on the first couple of tunes. But there were no kind of bites in terms of getting releases under my belt. Then a couple of years later, it finally materialized, and I connected with the guys from Soul Clap. And actually, it's kind of funny because Phil and I think, got our first official releases around the same time, under the kind of Crew Love umbrella. I was releasing with Soul Clap, and Phil, with Life on Planets, was releasing with Wolf and Lamb and Double Standard. And so that's when we kind of connected around that time as well. So we kind of came into the game around the same time.
Nice. So it's that kind of like where we both just did something here. Like we can
Yeah.
relate to each other, being at a similar stage.
Definitely.
That's
Yeah.
cool. So I wanted to ask you like two things right off the bat of what you said. But Phil, you said you're busking full time, like just
Yeah.
like kind of like on the streets of the city and just playing some music. Like that's so common in New York. You see it everywhere.
Right. It was a little tougher in Baltimore, but I was going to art school and skipping class like all the time to like play music, and I had this band, and I was like, oh yeah, this is it. We're gonna make it. And I left school, and I was working like, I don't know, 60 hours a week doing like labor jobs. And I was like, man, this is no way to get it started. And I started, I was like, I'm going to be like, I forget that one busker that like, it was a woman, and she was like just busking and got like picked up. And I was like, that's going to be me. I'm going to do that too. And I started busking. I had like maybe $40 left in my bank account, and a busking license is $40. And I was like,
Wow.
all right, I'm just going to do it. And then I went and got the license, and the first guy came and dropped like a $20 bill in my hat, and I was like, "Oh, I can actually do this."
Yeah.
So I
Made
was
half
just-
the money back.
I made half the money
Yeah.
back, and I kept busking the whole day, and I made like all the money back. I made like $50, and I was like, "Okay, I've got like $10 to go have beers and whatever." So yeah, I moved into a super cheap like flat, and was just busking like all the time. But then like that turned into like steady gigs at like the train station. They had like a bar in there, and they're like, "Oh, come in and play." And then people started coming in to see me, and then we started like a band in the train station, and then we started playing at like venues around the city and stuff, and it was like a whole thing. It was really fun, and like I don't know, it feels like I guess I don't know what would have happened if I hadn't have done that, and committed
Yeah.
all of those hours to playing and writing, trying to make new things happen on the street and impress people. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, that's like a classic, like almost like musical Cinderella story. It's like the
Yeah,
last
it's like a fairy
$40,
tale.
and here it is. And
I know.
but it's probably like, I mean, it's got to be so great because like you're making money, but you're also practicing and you're working on your craft all day.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like a great
felt
way
like
to do the two things.
It was the strongest like my voice had like ever been, and probably it was ever been.
Yeah.
Just singing and practicing all the time.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. A lot of people kind of migrate to the Baltimore area. I think it seems like it has like a pretty good like artistic scene going on. Like a lot of friends of mine from Long Island wound up. A lot of the artistic kids wound up in Baltimore to do their work.
Word. Yeah. So yeah, like I said, when I started going there, I was in art school, and so we would always go to like different warehouses on the weekends. And I guess I feel like Baltimore, you go to a Baltimore warehouse, it's nothing like a New York warehouse where it's like crazy sound system and you're paying like $20 to get in or something and it's packed or whatever. But it's like there's definitely like a really interesting like tight knit community, and you see all the same people at all the warehouse parties, and there's different like artists coming through, and it's like I don't know. I mean, it's definitely changed from what it was when I first moved to Baltimore, but there's still like a really cool underground scene. I think another thing about Baltimore is it's still pretty cheap. You can find like a house and like, have a studio in the basement and have a couple roommates and still be paying like at least 5 times less what you're paying in New York
Yeah.
for less space,
Right. Yeah, for like a little broom closet.
Right.
Yeah, that's cool, man. I love that story. It's a fun like putting your faith in your art and putting your money where your mouth is and giving it a shot. And David, you'd said like you in college you started like getting into like electronic music a little bit more, and I kind of come from a similar place, starting with guitar and then getting into more like synthesizer stuff and drum machines,
Yeah.
and which is I think a cool approach you don't always see, and you do a lot of that with your live performances, right? Like you're using like kind of a combination of
Yeah, it's definitely a combination of things, and I really try as much as possible to incorporate guitar into my production, into my live performance whenever I can. And then yeah, I've kind of added to the rig some like smaller synths, and I use the Ableton Push extensively. So it's nice to have that kind of blend of the more electronic stuff with the guitar and organic elements.
something I've kind of struggled with actually is bringing the guitar into the electronic performance.
It's tough. I'm not gonna lie. It's a little bit of a tricky one. If you play keyboard or piano, it's definitely easier to incorporate that into a live performance just because of the accessibility with the MIDI connectivity and whatnot. But so guitar is a little bit more complex. But I think guitar as an instrument still very much resonates with people, and people connect with it.
It looks cool.
It looks cool as well. It has a cool
looks cool.
factor.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was a time where I'd kind of neglected playing for a minute when I, first started getting into production seriously, and I really regret not having, abandoning my practice sessions and stuff at that point. But I'm just happy to have brought it back into my music, my approach to music.
I kind of went through the same thing where my guitar got a little dusty for a little while.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
I
and
found,
your chops get rusty.
yeah, I found myself like, I'm gonna play my guitar. It's like, hey, my hands aren't doing what they used to do.
Yeah.
They're like a little
Yeah.
slow, missing the
You have
notes.
to refamiliarize.
Yeah, I've found though, like when I just haven't found a good way to do it really. But when I try to do the guitar with the electronic stuff, I get this feeling, and I'm really like self-conscious about it because I never know if I'm doing enough, or if I
Yeah.
look like I'm just checking email or just standing there. Or sometimes I'll listen back to recordings and I hear it. I'm like, I'm just doing these things to make it look like I'm doing something, and the
Yeah.
music is actually
Yep.
suffering. But with the guitar, I always felt like I was just going, hey, and I can also play guitar. Look at me go.
Yeah, like here's a little added bonus kind of thing.
Yeah,
Like,
I haven't found a good way to make it not feel like a cheesy trick, almost like a parlor trick.
yeah, and I'm still kind of dealing with that a little bit too. How to bring in the guitar in a really effective way and in a meaningful way as well. Sometimes it's worked out great, and other times I do feel it I'm just doing it to look like I'm doing something.
Yeah.
But I think it also kind of depends. I have various sort of forms of my live set, and it really depends on the setting. It depends on which variety of live set I'm playing. Generally, it tends to work better for the more kind of chill, down tempo kind of sets. For like the heavy club sets, it's more difficult.
Yeah. I did see a video on your Instagram. You had a singer with you, and you were kind of sitting down playing the guitar, and that was really nice. I thought that was a nice way to do it.
Acoustic, right? Yeah.
I thought it was electric, but it was a little hard to see exactly what you're doing.
Got you.
You're sitting behind a table with the laptop, and it looks like a push.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah. So yeah, I did that was me playing the electric guitar, and the singer I was working with in that video is Brigitte Zazula, and she's also another frequent collaborator of mine. She's based in New York as well and has a fantastic voice. So she was featured on my first record with Soul Clap.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was a good example of it working out,
Yeah,
especially
and
having another person too.
Exactly. And I think having vocals in a live set really changes things. And for that particular performance, I had made a point to make it more stripped back and to make the focus kind of be minimal instrumentation, my guitar, and Brigitte's voice. And I also had a bassist with us that time too. So it was a pretty effective format.
Nice.
It worked well.
Yeah, I guess you got to feel out the. I could see your point though. Like something more laid back guitar can be like kind of nice, and it's you guys both really have this kind of like jazzy, soulful thing going on.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of my background in guitar is like power chords and punk rock, and
yeah, I feel you.
So it's like kind of funny. It's a funny mix. But that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, it's still. I know there's a way to do it and make it cool and effective. I'm gonna keep finding that way as best I can, but that's a question I always like to ask other guitarists that are getting into this kind of thing. So maybe I can have you guys tell us a little bit about your latest collaboration, the Airwaves.
Sure.
Certainly. Oh, so it actually started like a couple years prior. Like before I had even started touring with Life on Planets, I had like another project in Baltimore, and I had written this like, I don't know, it was like a crazy odyssey about this painting by Hieronymus Bosch, entitled "The Garden of Earthly Delights," and it's a triptych. There's 3 sections to the painting. One's heaven, one is I guess purgatory or earth, and then there's hell. And the hell portion of this painting is so striking and so complex and detailed and nuanced that it's always kind of stuck with me. And so the lyrics, in the lyrics, I was imagining being one of the figures in this painting, or like one of the sort of, I guess, gatekeepers, warning people of what could happen if they stumbled, into this territory or onto this path. And so it sort of takes place from that perspective. And then flash forward, I don't know, like 2 or 3 years later, when I had turned the Life on Planets project into a solo project, I was looking to create some new sounds. And I brought Dave over to like help me figure out like, how can we combine these sort of flavors? I was listening to a lot of K-Tronada, but I was also listening to like Migos and, still, of course, going to like Ibiza and Romania and checking out all this crazy like house and minimal stuff. And I was like, how can we combine all of these together? And so then, we were in New York. I think I had a gig that weekend, and we got together, and I had this like guitar sample on my phone. I recorded it on the phone, actually. If you listen to the track, you can hear my mom like in the background. I was at my mom's house for the weekend. Like, I want to like put this thing in a track, and like I recorded the guitar, and I was inspired by reading about like Steve Lacy. I was reading an article about him and how he would just like have singers like record on their phone and then put it in a track. And I was like,
he records most of his stuff on his phone.
Yeah,
I think. Yeah,
just with that
like,
internal mic on the phone.
No, I think from what, maybe he does that too, but I remember seeing that he uses like an iRig or something.
Okay.
I don't know.
I mean, probably not anymore, but
Yeah.
I think when he was
Maybe
first
at
getting
the
started, like, I think now he's in the studio, but who knows,
Oh, that's neat.
But yeah, so I was like, oh, let me just do that. And then so anyway, I got together with Dave, and Dave helped me like fit the uh, the phone sample and quantize it and put it together. And then we just started kind of jamming on it at our friend's apartment.
With like a K-Tronada inspired kind of drum kit
Yeah.
thing. But I remember actually we had actually started working on something else before, and it sounded cool or whatever, and Phil must have had some impulse to show me this guitar recording that he did, and as soon as I heard it, I was like, we need to work on this. So it was one of those moments where something just clicks, and it's like immediately the juices just started flowing, and it just took that one kind of catalytic moment to make all of that happen. And pretty much we had most of the recording done within a couple of hours. Maybe things were obviously rearranged and changed around after the fact, but really I think the primary source of inspiration was that that pretty bad guitar recording that sounds amazing.
Yeah. That's super cool. It's funny, like so I'm a big fan of like using like the phone. I mean, it's actually not so bad anymore, but the microphone isn't too bad. But if you have a microphone, whatever, who cares? If you've got a crappy recorder, it's better to get it than not get it.
Yeah.
And sometimes the cool thing is how it sits in a mix when it's recorded much differently, or when you can hear someone in the background. Like you said, you can hear your mother in the background.
Yeah, it has this like lo-fi, grainy kind of quality.
And it gives it like a personality, I guess.
And I can't tell you the number of times that, I've recorded something that, hasn't been an ideal recording setting or moment. And sometimes you capture some magic in those instances that cannot be replicated with the best of equipment, So
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, a lot of the first recordings from Life on Planets were all like bedroom recordings. And it was like we'd do the first take and then go back and try to change it or whatever. But we would always end up settling on that first take. Like, the energy's just like there, and it's like it's raw, and it's like you're not thinking too much about it. You're relaxed. And even here in New York, like I have a friend studio, and he'll let me come and record while he's out of town. And it's like they have a really nice mic, all these cool preamps, like a huge mixing board. But a lot of times I'll go in there and try to replicate what I did at home, and I'm just like, it just sounds too, like, I don't know, too separated or something. Like, it's like I'm in just this box, and there's no like air, there's no vibe. I'm in space somewhere.
like
or something.
dead energy. I think also we actually tracked the vocals in I think you were staying at a friend's house, and we tracked the vocals in the kitchen, living room / kitchen thing, just like in that moment. I mean, Phil had already had the song written, but everything kind of just happened in that one session. And I just want to give a special shout out to another frequent collaborator, Dan Isco. And he was actually involved with a remix that I had done for Phil for Life on Planets. That was our first kind of collaboration, and that did pretty well. It was received really positively, and so that also kind of kicked things off for us collaborating together. And Dan was involved with that, and he also contributed to Airwaves greatly as well.
Yeah, you get
He's a keyboard wizard.
Yeah. You get like a special vibe sometimes that, like you said, like like when you go into like an isolated booth, that's not a real world environment ever,
No.
in life.
Right.
And sometimes it's nice to just have a little bit of like the wrong parts in your recording, have a little bit of like the room reflections. It sort of places it somewhere. I find like what I think you were kind of getting at, Phil, was like stuff sometimes gets so sterile and clean and clinical. And I often like to record things to tape just to get like a gel, or even just run it through my tape machine, just to run it through the mixer and the electronics, just to kind of like I guess I'm ruining it a little bit, but there's a character and there's something that just pulls it together. Whereas when you're in the digital world, like each track is so separate from each other. But sounds aren't like that. You know, when you hear a live band, you can't isolate any of the sounds. They're all bouncing around off each other and affecting how they sound. So it's neat that you guys like to tap into that. It's I think that character comes through in the recordings.
Yeah, I think it also, you can probably speak to this too, but it sort of comes with a little bit of an experience. Obviously, we've been doing this for a while. We're by no means like veterans in the scene or anything, but you start to kind of learn what to go with and when to go with the flow and what works at different times and stuff. When I first started producing, I wanted to try to get the cleanest and most exact takes of everything. And you realize sometimes you can't capture the magic or capture the sort of character you're trying to achieve with that all the time.
Well, sometimes you can like clean the character out of the recording.
Exactly. Yeah. You can just wipe it out.
And sometimes I find something with a little more like energy or excitement. Like you said, that first take, you're kind of like excited. You don't really know what's happening. And it's hard to put your finger on it. Like you can't really say it. You hear it. You can't like cut that frequency out of it. But I really do think there's something, like maybe these microphones are picking up on more than just the sound waves. Like it's an energy that gets through.
Yeah.
Totally. And yeah, I think there's something about like that first take that's like playing live as well. You know, there's like a sort of like what's gonna happen, and you're sort of getting this intuition and like not sure like how it all is gonna sound, you know, until you listen to it after the fact. So there's like a nervousness and like you're sort of tottering the line and you're like, oh, and you know, there's magic about that.
Yeah, like each next note is being played off of the energy of the last note, and it's all unfolding before you. So there is like kind of that surprise. But when you go to replicate it and you practice it 10,000 times first, and then you get in there, it's more of like going through the motions.
Yeah.
Also, I don't know what guitar you played that line on that features in Airwaves, but he tried to teach it to me. I'm a pretty decent guitarist, and
He's
I
fucking
can't
amazing guitarist.
I can't nail it, you know, in that same way. As I just have to play like strummed chords over it, just because I can't get the line.
That's cool. There's a magic in the playing too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and the guitar, it's like this crazy little. It's like a parlor guitar, but it's nylon string. I bought it when I was like, I think I bought it for myself for my birthday when I first started playing guitar. I was like, I just want the little guitar to like be able to carry around with me and stuff. And then a friend of mine, Colin Prowl, he's like a really, really talented painter, doing like super well now. And he painted like these crazy intricate designs on it, and so it's just got this crazy mojo.
It's a gnarly
you know?
guitar.
Yeah. They was playing on it the other day. We recorded an acoustic version of the track too that hopefully will release a couple months down the line. But yeah, it's just like kind of like this really special little guitar that I would never really even think to go and trying to record for real. But it's like, okay, I just want to get this idea down, and it's kind of the guitar I'm always jamming on to like work stuff out on, you know.
Yeah, well, it's got a life. It's got a story, you know. Like you said, having it painted on too. That's really cool.
We'll have to send you a picture.
That would be nice. Yeah, we could put that in our show notes for the show.
Yeah,
people can check that out. I think that stuff's important. I've painted like my MIDI controllers, like my APC 40, you know, and my launch pad, and it just like takes it out of being this like factory made thing into like this is my thing now, like, you know.
Yeah, you take ownership of it.
But that's the tricky thing, you know, because it's like some gear, it's like, am I gonna have this forever? Do I want to personalize it and maybe not be able to like sell it later or something?
Well,
But
I guess if you think about it in that with that mindset, you are kind of like it's like when people like hold their guards up and you don't fall in love, you know, like if you're like looking at a piece of gear, like I might get rid of this soon, you know, like you don't commit to it.
Yeah, that's true. You're not taking a plunge.
Yeah. kind of guarded.
Yeah. I mean, God, man, I've been through so many guitars. I don't know about you guys, but like, like I was always in and out of like Guitar Center, the local guitar shop, like trading in guitars. Like, I was like, oh, I want a PRS, but nah, I don't really like this. I want a Jazz Master, and then going in and out, and like always like, oh man. But now I have like a Telecaster that I'm settled on forever. Well, mostly because my homeboy gave it to me, and he was like, all right, there's just one condition: you can never sell this guitar or give it away. Like, you have to just,
If you
just
do,
keep
you'll
it.
be cursed.
I'll be cursed. So I have to have it forever. So I have that. So I can paint this one.
I've only had my one Strat. I had a
Yeah?
first electric guitar that I had for 2 years, and then I got upgraded to my Fender 50th anniversary American-made Strat that I've had for maybe 15 years now. I got it when I was 16. So,
I
yeah,
have I have the 40th anniversary
Oh,
Strat.
shit,
That's like
okay.
my first real guitar too.
Nice.
And yeah,
Nice.
I mean that guitar is I tell you what, it kind of I was like Phil, like kind of like getting into a lot of other guitars, and I really liked the Mustang and the Jaguars, the Jag Stang,
Yeah, the
even, and
Jags.
but recently, over what was it? It was right before the summer started. I took out the old Strat, I restrung it, I polished it up, and then I was like, whoa, like
Yeah.
I forgot. It was like it never goes out of tune. It's
Right.
just it's my old friend. It's it's the one I grew
Yeah.
up on. So like we like remember each other.
Yeah, I think I will never sell my Strat ever. I dream of getting a new guitar at some point soon, just because I want a guitar with humbuckers because it adds a different tone and
Right.
feel and stuff. But yeah, I'll never get rid of this Strat.
Yeah, I think Strats and Tellys are they're unique. So when you get a good one, they're
Yeah.
and that's the funny thing about guitars
Workhorses.
is like each one of them is a separate piece of wood, and
Yeah.
sometimes you just get a good piece of wood, and it's
Yeah, it's true.
I've played cheap guitars that were amazing and expensive ones that were like
Well, I read that about Gibson Les Pauls actually recently, that it's there's so much variability in the sound of each Les Paul, and I think more with the modern day ones.
really.
Yeah, that's what I didn't really get too deep into the article, but it made me think twice about possibly buying a Les Paul.
You got to try out like 100.
Yeah, you gotta
Yeah.
take it home
Find
for a
the
bit.
sustain, find the heaviest one.
Yeah.
Right. I've always been a Fender guy.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
I
same.
did flirt with an SG for a while. Gibson SG.
SGs
yeah.
are very nice.
SGs are cool.
Yeah, I liked it a lot, but instead I put that money towards recording an album with the band.
Yeah, no,
Little
I
spend,
mean,
yeah.
I don't know what I don't know what was the better decision, but we have an album and then we broke up.
yeah, I actually I've been dreaming for a while about buying like a custom guitar from this brand called Kiesel. They're out in San Diego, and I'm like constantly checking their website and like going through reverb.com to see like what's on sale and stuff. But it's like they're pretty well priced, reasonably priced for the quality of the instrument because I've played Kiesels before. But it's just like, this couple of grand I could do, I could buy some more hardware or some extra plugins. I already have a guitar. Do I need another one? But I think at some point I'm gonna take the plunge on that one. Yeah,
I hear you. I know that struggle.
yeah. We all go through it.
It's tough.
I like this idea that you were saying the Garden of Earthly Delights, the painting, was sort of an inspiration. I was literally thinking about this today in my car. I was driving. It's kind of it's sad story, but I'll try to make it positive. I was driving by and I saw I guess they were like parents at like a telephone pole putting flowers. It looked like maybe they'd lost a child in a car accident. You see that on the side of the road sometimes. It just like it was just seeing it in action. Kind of struck me. And it got me thinking, and then, suddenly I sort of had like ideas for songs and lyrics and stuff. And it got me thinking about like, there's this idea like you sort of need to be like the tortured artist to write your music. I gotta wait until I'm, but sometimes it could be like a painting or a movie or something you see that you don't necessarily experience yourself, but I find like just a weird sense of inspiration out of that kind of sad event. I want, but not to bring this down, but I wanted to just ask you, like, because you said you went to art school too. Is this a way you like to work? Do you guys think, do you need to go through the things, or can you kind of like pull it out of other people's lives and work?
I think it goes both ways a little bit. It's like there's definitely like songs where I've tried to pull from my own experiences and recapitulate, a relationship or a time in my life. But I think, having the art school background, I like to be very conceptual as well. Like even like on like there's like a couple trap breakdowns in the song, and I'm like, those lyrics come from like a time where I was writing these like trap lyrics with like this triplet flow, but trying to like make it very abstract. Like, oh, I'm just like flying on a bird through the skies, like just like cruising around, like on some like anime magical boy shit, like really trippy stuff and imagery. But I think also some of like the great songs, like what is it? Is it the Bob Dylan song about the hurricane? That boxer, that got like locked up and killed and stuff. It's like he didn't actually experience that, but he was able to tell that story and convey it to so many people and like awaken their minds. So I think to some extent, going through that torture or those hard struggles can also help you relate to the struggles of other people, and then you can not only tell your story but their stories as well. And I don't know, but I also like, definitely to like pull from the imagination and like take these paintings and things. Like I've got another song coming out in December called Gold Action, and I was just like looking at this lamp I got from like Istanbul, and I'm like, oh, what if a genie came with this lamp and she was just like really chill, and then we started hanging out, and like she took me to like
Phil
Genie
has
Land.
such imaginative sort of, lyrical songs.
But it's hard to replicate that sort of thing, It's like, oh, I have a song about a genie. Like, oh, what else is here in my room, or what else can I go find? And then it's like, it doesn't turn out the same. It has to be like that moment. It's just like, oh yeah, and then you just flow with it. You can't force it.
Yeah, I get that a little bit sometimes, and I think this is like a little theme I'm starting to hear in this conversation is like, and this goes back to like recording the things on your phone or capturing the first take, like. Or when you look at the lamp and now you got this idea for the genie, like it's a hard thing sometimes to come back to and revisit and then start crafting and fixing and making right. There is something funny that happens like the moment you get that kind of jolt of inspiration and ideas start popping out of your head.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I don't really write lyrics and stuff, and I'm not a vocalist. So I was thinking about your question, and it's sort of difficult for me to make direct sort of linkages or connections between experiences that I've had and the songs I've written. But I think there is something to be said about your life experiences and how they affect you at a certain point, and even if you're kind of unaware of them, it does tend to come out in whatever expression you choose, or artistic expression. So but I think if I were writing, it would be a little bit different in terms of how things affect me and where I draw inspiration from.
Well, I guess when you're writing words, they're defined. They have specific
Yes.
meanings, but a set of chords may very well really evoke very specific emotions, but it's without that definition. Sometimes I'll hear music that is like a feeling that I don't have a word for that feeling. That you kind of get like we get. I'm happy, I'm sad, but there's a lot of things in various spaces in the middle that we don't really have a definition at least in English that I'm aware of. You know, like
Right.
they're just so specific. They're hard to define with a word. But sometimes
Yeah.
the music is maybe abstract enough to pull that out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think also I experience my most creative moments when I'm, feeling more kind of optimistic and hopeful about the future. I feel when I experience adversity or sadness, like I sort of not tend to shy away from music, but I don't feel the urge to write as much, or to create as much. But that's not to say that those experiences or emotions don't affect me, when I then go to make the music when I'm feeling, in a better mood.
Yeah, I think when you're, for me too, if I'm sad, depressed, or something, like I don't want to do anything. I
Yeah.
didn't want to get out of the seat.
Yeah,
Totally.
precisely.
But
But sometimes it helps.
sometimes after I do get out, so it's like maybe it'd be like get some exercise or something, or have like a good experience right after that depressive mode or the more sadder times. I find those are really good moments.
Exactly.
You
Yep.
kind of just came
I
out of it. You're like,
agree with
oh,
that.
okay, I feel a little better, and you can,
Yeah, I'm ready again,
yeah, there's a little jump start.
Yep.
So, when you guys were together then when you were working on the Airwaves track, right? You were in same place, same time. Do you collaborate ever distantly?
We have done that before, actually. I mean, for the remixes, that was done separately, obviously, because Dan and I did the remix to Fork in the Path, which was already recorded and already released. And actually, that song "Take Your Time," which was released on Crew Love as well as a part of my album, that was done remotely. And we went back and forth a lot on that track.
Yeah, that
Like
one
we
took a
sent
while.
so many recordings back and forth to one another.
There were like 7-minute versions and then like
Uh-huh.
3-minute versions and then like, oh, it's supposed to put everything in there and then let's take everything out and then,
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. But since then, since I moved to the States and we've been collaborating more, or since I moved to New York rather, um, we have been able to get together more, when Phil has been traveling up here, or when we've met somewhere else. And I think that's the best format, to work together in person. I like working remotely too, and there's something to be said for it. Um, I think it can help in terms of concentration and focus and for refinement and editing, but I think I'm also very particular in terms of what I want, from my songs, and so I like to give feedback and direction and make sure things are done to my liking, from the get go. So it helps to be together.
Dave's like, okay, let's get another take. And then we're like 4 or 5 hours later, like, all right, let's do one more.
It's like
Like,
50 takes
yeah,
deep.
it's like, oh my God.
I saw you smiling while he was saying that. You had a
Yeah, and then
comment.
but I have to go and sort through that afterwards, which is
He
not
does.
an easy task by any means, but
But he
it
gets
can be
Yeah.
his
done.
results. He gets the results, I think. And
Right,
it's
right.
good.
Well,
But for
that's
me, as
good,
someone who's
and
like,
then maybe that sometimes you need that when you have this like appreciation for the first take and the energy. Sometimes you need someone to say, "Yeah, but you could do it better."
Right,
We
right,
can
right,
keep
Some
totally.
going.
people hate working with me, I'm telling you. They don't like working with me.
Well, that's it's. I'm sure everyone listening that's ever recorded anything knows sometimes it's a over again, again, again. Try that again. Try that again.
Yeah.
And even with like the mixing and the editing, like, all right, I didn't like the way that sounded in the car. Let's go bring it back.
Yeah, please
Oh
don't
my
get me
God.
started on
The
that
mixing
front.
with this one was so crazy
Version
too.
17. Nah, it's not the one. Final edit. Really, the
That
final edit.
that's one thing I'm really trying to refine as a skill, my mixing, and I listened back to some of my songs that I'd mixed, a couple of years ago. I went back into the Ableton files just out of curiosity and kind of analyzed them. And I was pretty baffled as to how badly they were mixed. And
Really?
now I'm still, I'm not a mix engineer, and I'm still have a lot to improve in terms of my knowledge, but definitely gotten a lot better, and I feel the motivation to keep improving. So it's tough because I've worked with a mix engineer for a couple of different projects, and truth be told, it didn't really turn out the way I wanted, and I think it's I think it was partly circumstantial, but I also have a really hard time letting go of the projects, passing them off. And so I've kind of taken it upon myself to just like learn as much as I can, and do the mixes to the best of my ability, because I think that will achieve the best end result. And I can at least take responsibility for it at the end of the day.
Right. Yeah,
So,
it can be nice to get another perspective, especially if something's too crowded. Sometimes you get too attached to every little sound you have, and
yes.
another set of ears will be like, "Nah, we don't need that," or we'll put that in the
Yeah, and
background.
that's happened to me a bunch. And you feel the urge to resist at first, and when you kind of remove yourself a little bit from the project, or try to take a little bit of a different perspective, or get some distance, you do realize that sometimes you really need to take other people's feedback into account. Not always. I've rejected a lot of feedback, and I'm really happy that I rejected that input. But there are times where I've been really grateful for I guess, receiving input, and then also having an open mind to take it into account and factor it into the end product. And it has made the end result better in various instances.
Right. Are there certain type of activities that you guys would prefer to do together, and other things you would prefer to do separately? And as far as the production process goes, or even the songwriting process?
I mean, I think it's just better from a default perspective to do like editing and mixing stuff for the most part kind of separately. I definitely like to do the tracking and any sort of recording stuff, instrumental or vocal wise, together. I think that's really constructive. For me personally, I like to do arrangement stuff mostly on my own. I think we've done it in a variety of ways, and I've asked Phil his opinion on various arrangements. We worked together extensively on the Airwaves arrangements, and there was a lot of back and forth on that too. But yeah, I think it just depends on the song, and on what we're trying to get out of it.
Yeah, I would agree with all of that, really. I think it's easier to kind of get some of the initial ideas down together, whether it's like subtle things with the vocals or certain parts for the vocals, and even some like instrumental stuff, instrumental takes. But then it can be kind of like you're both thinking about things in like different ways or different placements, like when it comes to arranging and mixing, and then it kind of like ends up going like a little slower. So sometimes it's like better to split up and then just do that and then be like, here it is, and then like, oh well, maybe we could put this here and there, and then it's not like we're both trying to do it at the same time, and it gets all jumbled up.
Yeah, because I guess when you're doing that, like editing and mixing and subtle EQ or compression or something, it can be easy to. I mean, if you're just listening to someone do it, sometimes you're like, "What the hell are you doing?"
Yeah.
But you kind of need the time to like let your ideas come out,
Like flow.
and you can't have two people with their hand on the controls at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. And there have been a couple of occasions where I've worked with several artists on a track, and it feels like there are too many cooks in the kitchen, and it's best for one person to take the lead in some of those cases,
Right.
for the sake of the song or the project.
Yeah, that makes sense. Interesting. Yeah, it's because a lot of times we talk about like collaborating or working alone as if it's like all or nothing, but to have that like kind of mix is pretty cool. It seems like it's
Yeah.
working well for you guys.
Yeah, I think so.
Nice.
I think so for sure.
So, What kind of future projects do you have on the line coming up down the road here? Anything you can talk about vaguely or specifically?
I think we actually have a lot of new music in the works. I don't want to give too much away on that because based on our history, it could come out like 5 years later. You never really know, but we have a bunch of stuff that we've been recording, and I'm really happy about the songs, and I think some people would be a little bit surprised by the direction as well because it's definitely we've definitely taken a kind of multi-genre approach. Some songs are slower. We've been listening to some Afro beats recently, and have tried to bring in some of those elements into our songwriting. Um, Specifically, one song that we would like to mention is we have a really cool remix coming out at the end of November, November 22nd, and it's by this Italian DJ duo Lowheads. They've done a bunch of work with Crew Love, and Wolf and Lamb and Soul Clap, and they've kind of been longtime collaborators as well. And they've kind of emerged onto the production scene and have been doing some really great stuff. So they kind of just did this remix off the cuff. Just asked for the stems one day, and then in tutus we had this really cool, vibrant Italo disco remix to one of our songs, "Take Your Time." And so we're gonna put that out November 22nd on my label,
Nice, that's cool.
which is Kindness of Bearer Recordings.
Is it wildly different? Like sometimes a remix can be how surprised were you? I guess at the Italian
It's not
disco.
wildly different. I think it just adds a nice touch and makes it a little bit more club friendly. The first version that we did is definitely dancey and groovy, but I would say the Lowheads version kind of gives a little bit more of a punchiness and maybe slightly more of a richness and danceability, which is cool.
Does getting a remix back ever influence your own style, like in the future? Do you ever like get something back, be like, oh, that's kind of a cool direction, or that's something I should try to do more of? Like, I mean, I'm sure you can get a remix back and be like, that's not really what I was thinking for this song, but maybe it might inspire new directions.
Well, I don't want to toot my own horn or say too much, but I think when Phil and Patrick from Life on Planets, formerly of Life on Planets, heard the remix that Dan and I had done for Fork in the Path, I think you guys got some inspiration from that, and it's definitely happened with me. For instance, I have this other project that I'm part of called Deja Villa, and we are assigned to Ultra Music here in New York. And that project is me and a Jamaican vocalist, Sarah Couch, and we released a single a couple months ago called Ochitumobe, and on Ultra, and we are actually putting out a remix for that pretty soon. Two friends of mine in India did the remix. They're called Madstar Bass, and I thought that remix was such a fresh take on the original. And I don't really like to admit it normally, but I think it might be better than my original. But it's just a different
hard.
take, and it's a reinterpretation, and it's really cool and
Yeah.
edgy. So I was kind of inspired by that, and I think it's sort of colored my sound a little bit since then.
Oh, that's awesome. That's
Like 100 BPM kind of like just like slow burner, but it can be played in the club, and it bangs.
That's cool. I mean, I think a lot of times we think of like a remix as like this one-way street, but it can also, I mean, I think like sometimes I've heard remixes and I've been like, oh wow, that's like this song. It kind of sometimes shows the strength of a song too itself.
Yeah.
That it can live in a different kind of outfit, like
Our
a different
context,
costume.
yeah. Yeah.
And it kind of can open your perspective on like what's possible with the things that you hear and what you write.
Yeah, and I think based on that remix that I did for Life on Planets at the time, Phil and Patrick reached out to me to work on more stuff. So yeah, I think it definitely gave all of us a different view of what was possible in terms of the sound that we could all create.
It's a good sign when you get called back.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
I'm gonna, after we finish this up, I'll ask you maybe to get me some of those links because you mentioned a lot of different projects and tracks and remixes and stuff, so I can put
Yeah.
that in the show notes. But
Definitely.
for the people that may be listening that won't go to the show notes, where do you like to send people? Where do you guys both like to send people when you check out my music? Where's a good place we can have people go?
I guess recently Dave turned me on the Bandcamp, and like I was just like, whatever, like I have enough things. There's like I'm trying to manage the Spotify, trying to manage the SoundCloud, trying to do all these things, but I don't know. I mean, yeah, Bandcamp is like the most direct way to support your artists. So now I send people to the Bandcamp.
And what's the address on that?
Oh, we need to,
I did look.
I
we
think
need to look that up.
It's just lifeonplanets.bandcamp.com.
Cool. Lifeonplanets.bandcamp.com.
And I'm just looking up my Bandcamp as we speak. I should really know that off the top of my head.
That's
Okay,
okay.
so mine is just davidmarston.bandcamp.com. You want to check yours? I know.
We can check. Just type it in real quick.
Oh, shit.
You're right. There's so many places to put stuff, and to they can be exhausting. And sometimes, for me, like when I put this podcast out, I do it on the lip-sync site that I use, and then I go to SoundCloud, and then I go to YouTube, and then I go to my website, and then I put it on Twitter and Instagram. And it's just like, damn.
Yeah.
That's another job of itself.
Totally.
But so that's life. It's still lifeonplanets.bandcamp. We got that right? Cool.
Lifeonplanets.bandcamp.com.
Yeah, and you can search for us on Spotify. I'm just David Marston, and Phil is Life on Planets.
Yeah, and I found that on Apple Music too, in case anyone's wondering.
Right.
So-
Music as well.
We're on all the platforms
Yeah,
pretty much.
pretty much everything.
Yeah, you guys are on all the platforms.
All the platforms worldwide.
Beatport and
Yeah.
TrackSource for those heads too.
Right. Well, cool. Is there anything else you'd like to say to the people before we wrap this up?
Yeah. So we also shot a music video for Airwaves
yes.
back
cool.
in
How could we leave that
April, and it's like finally almost done. So be on the lookout. We have like the final, and we're just looking for a place to premiere it. So yeah, that's coming out really soon.
And shout out to the directors for that video because they did a pretty stunning job.
Yeah, we worked with a team, Laura Lynn and Clark Leland. They're both super talented, and I don't know how we would have made this happen without them, for real.
Yeah, it would have been tough for sure. But we're excited to unveil that to everyone, and it should be coming pretty soon.
It's gonna be my first music video. I think Dave's been in a couple before.
One or two.
Yeah, but this will be my first. And I'm excited
Cool.
for people to see my dance moves. And,
Oh, boy.
Cool hair.
Nice. Well, thank you guys both for taking the time to be on and sharing some of your thoughts and a lot of cool ideas just about the creative process, and the importance of knowing when to go with the first take and knowing when to
True.
Keep it going.
keep going. I think I know I find it useful, so I think a lot of people will too. So thank you guys.
Yeah, and thank you so much for having us on the show. It's been a pleasure chatting with you, and let's keep in touch.
We will.
Yeah, we got to come check you out next time you're playing in Brooklyn or something.
Yeah, same with you guys. Man, I saw October 12th. I was like, damn. It's like,
Yeah,
so yeah, you'll have to keep me posted for sure.
and it's on. We just did a little because I'm leaving for a little bit, indefinitely. I'll probably be back in New York sooner than I think. But
We hope.
I'm going away for a bit. But we just did a little goodbye party for me last night at Black Flamingo, and
Oh, nice.
Phil hopped on, and we performed Airwaves and a newer song, which was pretty cool. People liked it.
Yeah, it was fun.
It was a nice send off as well.
Cool, cool.
But next time we're in New York together playing, we'll have to let you know.
Yeah, we'll put you on the list, man.
All right, please do. All right, cool. Well, thank you everyone for listening, and have a great day.